Hi everyone. Today, on the last day of the year, I'm going to bring you a word which is quite relevant today, and it's a word that perhaps would you could use for today. And also, I'll begin this by just saying these three sentences where this word could be used. The butterfly flitted across the garden. She flitted in the kitchen, and the hummingbird flitted from flower to flower. Now, all these three sentences are from Merriam Webster, and by now they are not my sentences, but by now you know that the word of the day is flitted. Why is it important, or why am I tracing the etymology of flitted? Because it's a word, and I really like when words do that. That has changed its usage, and that has changed the sense in which it started being used and is now used. By now you know that it is used for a movement, for flowing. But this word has so many so many meanings are more or less same, like consolation. So it's same, but the speciality of this is that it shows the different kind of languages it's coming from. So again, has traveled a long journey, so this word is a traveler. And the way I mean, it was surprising for me, the way its meaning has changed, or the our usage of the word, the way we use it, used to use it in that at that point of time in medieval England, Middle English, medieval England, and now it has changed. So without any further delay, let me zoom into my notebook and let's see how and where this word has traveled and what change it has brought. So flit, according to one of the sources, has been around circa 1200, and another source stated it as around circa 1340. Now, the meaning is convey, move from one place to another, coming from Old Norse, flitja. I don't know whether the Old Norse pronunciation is flitja or it's something else, which means to remove or bring, coming from Proto German, flutja, which means to float. And then we interestingly have this word that from Proto German, it is the extended form of something called plu. Now, what was plu? I got excited and I got intrigued. So plu is basically a Proto-Indo-European root which means to flow. From there, around early 15th century, the meaning was to move lightly, and around circa 1500, it was to remove from one habitation to another, originally from used in Northern English and Scottish. Now, Plu does something interesting. Plu shows that it forms so it's quite interesting, because I remember that as a kid, when certain words were similar, so I always used to think that is there any association between these two words. So yeah, so Plu forms a part, tells us that it forms a part of flee, fleet, float, flood, flutter. And then there's this hypothetical evidence which shows that it comes from Sanskrit plavate, which means to navigate, Greek plane, which means to wash and navigate, Latin plovere, which means to rain. So again, as I told you, this word is everywhere. It's quite popular in its social circle. Coming from Armenian luanam, which means I wash. Again, wash, play, flow, move. Old English floan, to flow. Old Church Slavic, you know, uh, and I think yeah, Old Church Slavic plovo, which means to flow, and Lithuanian pilu, which means to pour out. Now, what's a twist? Around medieval, circa 1340, the use was change in state, but here it meant change in state from life to death. So now what we use, the word that we use for moving from one place to another, flittering across, flitter, was actually change of state from life to death in medieval England. So the example is when a man fra, I think fra here means but I don't know, it's maybe from, but I'm totally not sure. When a man fra this world shall flit. So when a man from this world shall flit, I think that's what it meant. And it is written by 14th century hermit Richard Rolle. And now coming to a bit of more etymology. So Middle English flitten, as you can see it here, it was flit. So Middle English flitten, which means passing from one state to another, which is a usage which we do not use anymore. So it's strange that the word that used to be used for, that used to be, applicable for death, is used in a very light sense these days. Old Norse flygelsk, which means to move, and Old English flotan, which means to float. And now, if you look at your Oxford English Dictionary, it would say that it's like, move quickly. And British informal usage is the act of leaving one's home in secrecy. So now that we are flittering from one year to another, it's really interesting that how flit meant passage of, from one state to another, and hereby at one state it meant actually the change of state. Human body changes and it goes through death, and that's what it is. But it is no longer do we use that. Rather we use it, as a very as a movement, as a delicate movement, as a movement that is like mouse flittering across the room. So we use it like that. So that's my word of the day. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you liked the fact that it has traveled so far, and it's popular in its social circle, and how its usage has changed, how it used to be associated with death, and now no longer is associated with death, and rather it is associated in not exactly contradictory sense, but in a different sense, which also I think shows us that how things change, and how what might mean what something might mean today might not mean the same after a couple of years. So passage of time, I think philosophically it's quite interesting also how these words connote and implicate certain concepts, philosophical concepts, and shows us that that how especially with reference to flit, that how things do change. There's the only perpetuity, I think, is that everything changes. So it's quite beautiful that way, if you look at it, and if you trace how words are changing. And obviously words, we know words become obsolete, and the meaning changes, but it's still quite interesting to trace these little words and know about them. Thank you for being with me. I hope you found it interesting, and have a great new year, and I hope you do whatever you wish to do and keep following the journey of words with me.